For so long now, Republicans and Trump supporters have brushed off the warnings of Democrats that Donald Trump's administration will cost people their lives as hysterical, as overblown, but as we see in Texas, we were right. Donald Trump's cuts and attacks on our government are costing the lives of Americans, and it's only getting worse because when Donald Trump was confronted today over the disaster he caused, he is responsible for in Texas, his answer was shocking. It seemed like he didn't care at all, offered no support, and says that things won't change going forward. It was a crazy press conference that we are going to get into, but first I want to start with another ally that Donald Trump is seemingly abandoning altogether when he was confronted first about Ukraine right here.
Say it.
Why not help Ukraine the same way you help Israel?
I am helping Ukraine. I'm helping it a lot. And it's a war that should have never happened. It's a war that should have never started. If I were president, if the election weren't rigged, and it was rigged so badly, and that's come out. Read Miranda Devine in the New York Post today. The election was totally rigged. And if it weren't rigged, you wouldn't have a war with Russia right now, and you wouldn't have had inflation. And you wouldn't have had the horrible Afghanistan, the way they left. Not that they left. We would have been out before them, but the way they left. I think the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. You wouldn't have had the October horror show with Israel and Hamas. You wouldn't have had any of it. You wouldn't have had the recent showdown with Iran. You wouldn't have had any of it. And you wouldn't have had inflation.
So you said you had a strategic call with Zelensky the other day. What strategy did you
I thought it was a good call. He's being hit very hard, as I said he would. He's being hit very hard, and I was very disappointed with my call with President Putin. I was very disappointed.
So you would think that Donald Trump having a bad call once again with Putin humiliating him with the worst strikes that we've seen since the beginning of this brutal invasion, and Zelensky constantly doing whatever he can to appease, to thank, to help, to engage with Donald Trump would lead to a different course of action, but it hasn't. All we see is the same old, same old. Donald Trump pausing shipments of necessary munitions to Ukraine, all while blaming Joe Biden for starting this war. Like that makes any sense at all. This is another catastrophe, which Donald Trump clearly has no control over and doesn't even care about at all. But that's just what we've come to expect from this Trump presidency. It is a petty politics that is centered in whatever Donald Trump does. And that continued when he was asked about Elon Musk's new third party, which he has just launched, before he was questioned on the disaster in Texas.
Elon Musk starting a third party?
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party. The Democrats have lost their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to confusion. It really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
So what's your feedback?
Donald Trump taking the opportunity to attack the Democratic Party for no reason right now, when it's just his breakup with Elon, the spiraling civil war that continues to happen in and out of his administration over it. It just goes to show where his focus really is, which is always on Donald Trump. It's the only thing that ever matters to him. People have lost their lives. It took Donald Trump 24 hours to put out even a measly Truth Social bleat. People continue to lose their lives, and Donald Trump doesn't seem to care. And just how little it matters to him was revealed when he was asked about the cuts he made, whether FEMA is going away, and whether or not he would hire back meteorologists, in 3 questions that just show how disgraceful this presidency is.
Okay?
Are you investigating whether some of the cuts to the federal government left key vacancies at the National Weather Service or in the emergency coordination?
No,
They did not.
They did. I'll tell you, if you look at that, what a situation that all is. And that was really the Biden setup. That was not our setup. But I wouldn't blame Biden for it either. I would just say this is a 100-year catastrophe. and it's just so horrible to watch.
Are you planning to visit Texas?
Are you still planning to phase out FEMA?
Well, FEMA is something we can talk about later, but right now they're busy working, so we'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
Mr. President, in light of the floods, do you think that the federal government needs to hire back any of the meteorologists who were fired in the last few months?
I wouldn't know that. I really wouldn't. I would think not. This was a thing that happened in seconds. Nobody expected it. Nobody saw it. Very talented people are there, and they didn't see it. It's, I guess they said, once in 100 years. They've never seen anything like this. So I wouldn't, I mean, people are trying to blame the school. They're trying to blame the camp. They're trying to blame. It's just a horrible thing. But no, I wouldn't say that, no.
So not only did Donald Trump brush off the cuts he made that former members of his administration who worked for the National Weather Service said were responsible for this crisis, could have been prevented except for the cuts by Doge in Trump. He brushes that off, gives no attention to FEMA, says, maybe we'll think about it. Maybe in 2 weeks we'll discuss it. That's something we're seeing happening a lot right now by Republicans, saying that liberals are politicizing this issue. Oh no, we have to make sure that we don't politicize an issue caused by politics, caused by the idiotic and cruel politics of Donald Trump's administration. What are you talking about? And the fact that Trump says he won't hire back meteorologists, I'm surprised he didn't just say, yeah, sure, whatever, and then not do it. Like, that would have been classic Trump. But to completely brush it off, again, just shows how little he actually cares about this situation. Sure, in a written statement that someone else wrote for him, he'll say thoughts and prayers along with Mike Johnson, but he doesn't care that people are losing their lives in a senseless tragedy that should have been prevented. All of this could have been. All of it. Including the economic pain that Donald Trump is inflicting with this idiotic trade war. He was asked about it right here. His response was ridiculous.
Mr. President, do the tariff rates change at all on July 9th, or do they change on August 1st?
What are you talking about?
Tariff rates, do they change on July 9th or August 1st?
No, they're going to be tariffs. The tariffs are going to be the tariffs. I think we'll have most countries done by July 9th, yeah. Either a letter or a deal.
But they go into effect on August 1st. Tariffs go into effect August 1st, but the president is setting the rates and the deals right now.
It really looks like the art of the deal is not making deals and caving on deals and extending the deadline for deals because you're just so bad at not being able to make the deals. What benefit has come out of Donald Trump's tariff war except for, I don't know, a PR campaign for him to pretend like he cares about the American middle class and manufacturing jobs? Some insider trading has clearly happened in and around MAGA world and for Donald Trump's rich friends. Remember the video of him bragging in the White House about how much his buddies had made in a single day? Yeah, that's what's come out of this. And it only gets worse as Donald Trump does Robin Hood in reverse for his rich friends. And that was all slammed and called out by Governor Andy Beshear right here.
Well, this law is devastating. It's the single worst piece of legislation I've seen in my lifetime, and it is a congressional Republican and presidential attack on rural America. In my state alone, 200,000 people are going to lose their coverage. Those are 200,000 Kentuckians that deserve to see a doctor when they're sick. 20,000 healthcare workers are going to lose their jobs. And we've got up to 35 rural hospitals that are typically the second biggest employer in their communities that may close their doors. And what that means is our economy takes a huge hit. And then whether you have private insurance or Medicaid, if you live in rural America, you have to drive hours just to see the doctor that used to be in your community. It is awful. And that is before we even talk about the cuts to SNAP, which means that seniors and children will go hungry at night and wake up hungry in the morning. I cannot believe that Congress was willing to pass this. I mean, it's awful.
They did add about $50 billion for rural hospitals. You don't think that's going to help?
No, based on the massive cuts that are here, based on the fact that a rural hospital may have 40% or 50% of their revenue coming from Medicaid, this will not help to keep those doors open. And so what you're going to first see are rural hospitals cutting specialties. You may have to drive several hours just to give birth in many parts of this country. And just think about how the economic hit to these communities go. You lose 200 jobs from doctors and nurses and orderlies, and all of a sudden the coffee shop does worse. The bank doesn't have as many folks coming in. I mean, this is going to hit rural America right in the face.
This bill is an absolute catastrophe. It does steal from the working poor to give to the ultra wealthy and giant corporations. Meta is going to get like billions of dollars for doing nothing just in their back tax. It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make any sense. We just saw the tackiest, stupidest, ugliest $50 million wedding from Jeff Bezos, and a bunch of Republicans who saw their constituents starving said, maybe we get a couple more of those. Maybe we'll get an invite. I don't want to go hang out with Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez in Milan. I'd rather see Americans fed and housed and healthy. Isn't that the job of public service? Not helping the bald billionaires with their weird extracurricular activities? I don't know. Clearly not to Republicans. But Rokon is calling them out for that right here.
Instead, they've given 60% of the tax breaks to the richest Americans, and they're hurting working class Americans, and they're making them poorer, and that's the Congressional Budget Office.
Well, by IRS data, though, the 2017 cuts, which were just extended, they did benefit every bracket of taxpayer, and by their assessment, it was middle and lower income taxpayers who actually benefited more as a percentage of their income.
Jen, that's an excellent point of why this bill is so much worse. In 2017, there was disproportionate benefits for the wealthy, but you're right. Everyone got some break. Now, 40% of Americans, if you're working class or middle class, you're actually going to be worse off because you're going to lose health care, you're going to lose food assistance, and the small tax cut isn't going to make up for that. So if you're in the top 50% of Americans, fine. But if you're in the middle class and working class, this bill is actually going to make you worse off. And that's why it's such a cruel policy. By the way, it's a tax increase on everyone's health care. They're taking away the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Premiums in this country for those on the exchange are going to go up 75 to 100%.
This bill is a tragedy that will inflict economic pain on Americans for decades to come if we do not work to combat it, to call it out, to message against it, and make sure we can stop it when Democrats retake the House, the Senate, and retake the White House so desperately now more than ever. To stop this generational economic catastrophe, do we need Democrats to step up and not just return us to some status quo pre-Trump? That is not enough. We need a new economic vision to combat the rampant income inequality, which is in and of itself an existential threat to our country. We are certainly going to be talking about that on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.